Hey, this is another episode of the Human AF podcast. I am your co-host, Steph Taylor.
And I'm your other co-host, Steph Laffy.
Whoop, whoop. All right, so on
How did
to,
that feel?
right, so good. In today's episode, we are going to be diving into how all of this feels in your body. Because when we are talking about having difficult conversations and you're going to have stuff kind of like from your past come up from now, your body is going to tell you things. So your body kind of keeps score in a way. And we want to dive into that because there's so much more in there that you need to know in order to trust yourself in having these difficult conversations and like how it really impacts you kind of in the longer term as well. So
Mm.
Steph has some really awesome insight to add to this. We both kind of do, but she has been reading the book, The Body Keeps Score. And I want to hear from her what her takeaways are, like where she's really feeling this conversation needs to start.
Oh, wow. Way to put the pressure on. I'm kidding. So yeah, I've been reading this book, The Body Keeps a Score. If any of you follow me on Instagram, you may know that I've been doing this challenge where I have to read 10 pages a day. And so I started the book about a week ago because I had just finished my last book. So I'm only about 70 pages in. Um, I think that for that book, everybody keeps telling me, it's a really heavy read. Like, you're gonna probably have to take breaks from it. I think that because I'm going at such a slow pace, 10 pages at a time, it's not really, it hasn't thrown me completely for a loop yet, although it is making me think a lot of big thoughts. So one of the things that they talk about a lot in the book is, and what I love about this book is he talks from a scientific standpoint about how the brain works and how all of your inner systems work. But he also shares a lot of stories and he really humanizes the whole thing. So it's not like you're being talked at with a bunch of stuff that you don't understand, or
Right.
at least
Yeah,
I don't.
jargon stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I feel like I'm understanding different regions of the brain, but he's also tying in stories to help like really paint a big picture.
Right. What
Um,
it looks like and like what to expect and how to recognize it, I guess, in yourself.
yeah, exactly. And he's one of the things that came up, one of the first things that stopped me in my tracks was he wrote something he wrote something about we're not showing video, right?
No.
He wrote something about it was you'll never be able to heal unless you feel what you feel and you know what you know.
Ooh.
And that has been just I can't get it out of my head. I can't stop thinking about that line. And I'm like, okay, well, this summer I really embraced the idea of feeling what I feel. I learned that just because you don't want to feel an emotion doesn't mean that it's gonna go away just because you don't want to feel it. Like you got to feel it to move through it. And I really took that to heart and I learned how to not only feel my emotions but also name them, acknowledge them, hold space for them and get comfortable with them and just move through them rather than having them fester. So I was like, okay, like the feeling your feels part, I get. But what the heck does this guy mean when he says you have to know what you know? I'm like, what does that mean? Have I, in my pursuit of feeling what I feel, have I forgotten to know what I know? And like, what does it mean to know what I know? How do I know what I know? And I would love to hear your take on that. For me, I think that knowing what I know is what are the things what is the inner wisdom that I know? What is my intuition telling me? What are my senses telling me about like the world and like how I fit in it? And how am I ignoring that? And how can I learn to just like know what I know and do the thing?
Oh, wow. Okay, so incredibly powerful. So incredibly powerful. Okay, my brain is just racing right now because I haven't read this book, but I have had this book recommended to me by multiple people. And most recently, a counselor, therapist, and it is all about that exact kind of quote, I think, where we need to feel our feelings and understand that feelings aren't necessarily facts. But knowing what you know, that's where the facts are. And knowing what you know in relation to your body, because your intuition is going to be screaming at you. Your intuition knows sooner than your mind does, and your mind will play tricks on you based on your feelings, because
Hmm.
feelings can be created within you based on external. That's kind of,
Hmm.
they're your thoughts as well as their external. So someone can, like, you're watching a movie and you just like you start getting that, like, oh my God, this is a very sad scene, and like your stomach starts hurting and you feel it in your chest, and then you start crying, and it's not real, but you have these feelings because then it's being created from you. But that's like a whole thing to explain how the feelings are created externally. But then knowing what you know is, your body is going to tell you before you actually, your brain knows. So in that, it's, we grow up forgetting our intuition. We grow
Hmm.
up no longer trusting ourselves because when we're younger and we're littler, we're like, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm sad. And then our caregivers, our parents are like, oh, that wasn't a big deal, or oh, you're fine, you're not hurt,
Hmm.
whatever. And so you become invalidated. So you no longer trust yourself. You have others
Hmm.
telling you what to do, how to do it, where to do it. You look externally for that validation, and your internal intuition, you aren't taught what it feels like, looks like, and how to trust it.
Hmm.
And that is how you know what you know. But as you become an adult and you start to reconnect with that intuition, frick, your
Yeah.
body tells you what is true, and you know it before your brain catches up.
Wow.
I am like,
Yeah.
oh,
Is your brain in a pretzel?
my, my, it's like the culmination of so much, because I have been through something so messed up for the
Hmm.
majority of my life, and my body told me in so many situations
Hmm.
brain couldn't accept it because my feelings were activated.
Yeah. Okay, I want to touch on that for a second, and I'm gonna blow your mind even more. You ready?
Gosh.
Before I before I do, I really think if we ever do merch, we should have a shirt that says "My brain is in a pretzel." Just saying.
I,
I say it so much.
you do.
Um, Anywho, so in the book, he actually says something about how he really goes very in depth with how the right brain is the emotional brain, that's the creative brain, right? And then the left brain is your logical brain, that's how you interpret facts and language and opinions. Am I getting that right or am I getting mixed up? I don't remember.
No, I'm pretty sure that's right.
Okay, so you got, I'm not a scientist, guys, but that's what I'm pretty sure it is. One brain does
What
the
they
logic and
Yeah.
and the language and all of that. The other is the creative side. So the first part of your brain when you're a baby that is formed is the right side, the emotional side.
Yes.
The logical side comes a little bit later, although it does start to form when you're a little kid because the left side of your brain controls, yeah, it controls like your ability to eat, sleep, cry for help, poop, like all
Survival.
those basic
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but the right brain is the one that forms more quickly. Or earlier on. And I I'm probably missing some dots here, but what I and they'll come up at some point. But what I thought was interesting is he mentioned that if you go into a state of extreme fear or extreme sadness or despair or trauma, um, your your right brain has first dibs on like how you react. So it's like your feelings are going to trump out your logical side of the brain. And like if you are in a state of like I'm so scared and you're like you become frozen and your logical side which controls your ability to speak or act or do like a rational thing is literally like handicapped, like it can't do anything because you become so focused on that feeling.
This
um
explains so much in my life right now.
and I'm not explaining it. I'm not articulating it as well as like I wish I could, but like it's blowing my mind.
Yeah. That is huge. And I think that it is such a key piece to having conversations with people. Like we've talked about, setting boundaries and knowing what your values are and operating with authenticity and like knowing your worth. This I think is a huge piece
Hmm.
because we've kind of touched on before there you will try and have conversations with people, but there's probably a point where your body is going to be screaming at you going, this person's not an okay person to have a conversation with, or
Hmm.
there's going to be something in your intuition in your body that's like repelling whatever it is your logical brain is like trying to get you to do
Get you
because
to, yeah.
yeah, like it's great, it's rational, it's good, like I want to be vulnerable, I want to be open, I want to share these things, I want to be curious about this person, I want to be a good person, and this is how a
Mhm.
good person operates. Meanwhile your body's like, get the heck out of Dodge.
Right, exactly. Yeah, your feelings are taken, they basically hijack your brain's ability to make a decision. And the
Yeah.
other thing too is I believe he said something about like because the logical side of your brain is unable to like break through like and like get the message to you when you're in such a state of like trauma and like emotion, it becomes almost impossible for victims of trauma to even speak at certain points. Like they can't form the words because that side of their brain is almost like deactivated or it's not able to like break through. So you can't, it becomes impossible to articulate what it is that you experienced, the essence of what you experienced. Like, and so you continue staying in that situation because your brain just can't break through and tell you, like, okay, like, we're not safe. Like, we need to go.
I am like having a huge moment.
I know, I see your face.
I
It's,
have 1000% lived this, and I understand why this book has been recommended to me to read,
Mhm.
understand, because yeah, when you're in a situation that is an ongoing situation, you can't see what you can't see. And
Mm-hmm.
though your body is kind of telling you, you there's just something that is not allowing you to see, because if you did, everything everything that you have lived and been, it's like, oh, it's a lie. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
yet everybody else can see it because their
Right. They're
emotion
not in you. They're not, yeah.
yeah, their emotions aren't clouding everything, and the emotions aren't being triggered in them.
That's the word I was looking for, yeah.
Oh, this is
Oh,
there,
and you want me to add another layer here?
so
Are you ready for this?
I'm
Um, it's crazy. So then he was talking about how, and then I'm gonna stop and we'll keep going. Um, he was talking about how when you get into this state of like you're frozen or like you can't move, like your emotions are clouding your vision, you're a lot of the times you're reliving that traumatic experience because the right brain is activated. That's the side of you that's creative. And so your brain is like picturing the traumatic experience as if it's still happening in this current moment. So you're reliving that trauma in the now, even though it's behind you, and you're struggling to get past it, and your brain can't compute like the danger's gone. Like you don't need to be frozen right now. It is okay. You are safe. Like your brain can't. That's why a lot of like um former war veterans are constantly like, they hear fireworks and they think it's guns. Like that trigger is triggering their stress hormones and they're like freaked out and they feel like they're back in that war zone, like unable to, like it's so insane.
I literally live this on a weekly basis. Like,
Right.
that is these are therapy sessions for us guys. Like,
Yeah.
the oh my gosh, I had no idea. I mean, now that I've gone through now in my situation where I have been able to remove myself and see through lots of work and conversations, uh wow, this is big. And I think it I'm so glad that we decided to talk about this on the podcast, because
While it's still fresh.
oh my gosh, right? Well, it's like I'm still living in this. Uh,
Oh
but
no, I'm saying while it's fresh for me
oh
while I'm
well.
reading it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're only 70 pages in. Like, I'm literally staring at the book because I got it from the library and it is probably 1,000 pages maybe. Um, this is such an important piece to what we want to share on this podcast, because when you recognizing, and if any of you are sort of listening to this and going, oh, oh, this sounds kind of familiar, highly encourage you to even reach out to us and go like, can you explain a little bit more? Because, off the podcast we can definitely share some more stuff. um
Mhm.
don't want to share too much personal stuff on like a podcast, but definitely to help other people have that emotional charge kind of come down, or like see through that emotional charge. If you can see yourself in somebody else's situation, it can kind of help. um but I think it's so key to have this conversation so that you are aware more so of, you can't necessarily, like, who you think you are isn't necessarily who you think you are when you are in a traumatic experience.
Mm.
So you can't always separate reality from your world that is somewhat false.
Mhm.
But that quote of feeling your feelings and knowing what you know seems so simplistic, but also like very vague. Very vague. Um, there's so much to unpack in that quote alone. Like, what the frick is it to feel your feelings? What is it to know what you know? I don't even know where I'm going with this. This is just so like my mind, so all the things that I've gone through, all the things that I've learned, all the things that are even still to today to this moment clicking into place.
Oh
Being
yeah.
able to have conversations and knowing your value, knowing your worth, knowing who you are, knowing when to say no, to stop, to remove yourself. And sometimes you have to remove yourself in order to calm the chaos so you can know what you know.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Oh my God. As you're talking, I'm like, so many more nuggets from the book are like dropping. I'm like, do I continue to talk to these and share these and throw you off for a loop?
Okay,
Um,
I want to know from you when we like, let's just stop on the book part.
yeah, we need to stop on
Let's
the book.
go back to your body and like your
hmm
body knows and your body keeps score in general.
hmm
I want to hear from your impact, from your own story, if you want to go in
hmm
there. Just when you hear that, like your body knows, your body keeps score, like what comes up for you?
So I think for me, the reason that I was afraid to read this book, for a long time, is because of that simple statement, your body keeps the score. I'm like, I wasn't like right now, I'm not exactly like the picture of perfect health, but like I am a lot healthier. I'm making a lot better habits, but I wasn't always making the best choices. And so I walked around knowing that I wasn't doing necessarily right by my body in terms of the food I ate, the alcohol, the substance other than alcohol, the medication that I was prescribed by a pharmacist that weren't so good for me. Um, I wasn't taking care of my body for many years. And not even just in terms of what I consumed, in terms of just my habits. I mean, I was not sleeping for years. I was, when I was in a state of like emotional, like a really emotional distress without even realizing it, I wasn't as hygienic as I could have been. So like my teeth especially suffered. I've had all the worst freaking habits, from chewing gum to like picking up blisters. Like this is getting gross, but like so many bad habits that came up from anxiety and from not dealing with my stress. Um, and from just trying to shove my feelings down and not deal with my life. The amount of time that I spent looking at my phone and my screen time, still working on that. Um, just there's so many things that I was doing that I knew were not the were not the epitome of treating my body the way that it deserves to be treated. And so when I heard that phrase, the body keeps the score, I'm like, oh fuck, I'm losing this battle. Uh, like I'm not gonna win this one. Um, and I was just afraid. I guess I was afraid to know what I knew, which is that the things that I am currently doing or things that I was doing are gonna come back to bite me in the ass, because even though I've cleaned up my act and put a lot of those bad habits to rest, um, I still did them for 20 something years. And I don't know that I can. What if I can't recover from that? What if it's too late for me? What if my body isn't able to heal from all my bullshit that came up from me not wanting to feel my feelings or know what I know and stop doing what I was doing. Like I was literally self-destruct, like what's the word? Self-sabotaging my poor little body. And luckily I'm on the right track now, but I'm like, how much damage have I done?
Steph, as you're sharing this story, I'm I'm like seeing it in a totally different way now, where it's number one, now that you've made so many changes in the time that I've known you, whether it's been a year or two, I don't even remember, but
I think
I,
it's been 2 years.
I think it's been 2 years too. Um, as you have grown in this journey to kind of become more yourself, like actually being who you want to be, finding your voice and using your voice in a way that feels good to you as an introvert and
hmm
sharing that journey, how have you found you've changed your habits? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, as
Yeah.
you've become more centered in you, have your habits sort of changed themselves?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's definitely, it's a to be cliche, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Like it's one habit that I'm really proud changed, like out of the blue by accident, was I stopped chewing gum. I stopped needing it.
For that.
Yeah. And I mean that was a big one. I was chewing like 2 packs a day. I was a freaking cigarette addict. Like, but with gum. It was an oral fix. I don't have an oral fixation anymore. And I believe it's because I'm using my voice. Like
Yes,
it's crazy.
that's exactly what was coming to me was your behaviors before were almost like because you hated yourself.
hmm
Those bad
Yeah.
behaviors were like, I hated myself and I
hmm
treated myself like crap because
Right.
I wasn't being me. I wasn't knowing what I know. And
hmm
therefore I had all these feelings and I wasn't feeling those feelings to work through why I hated myself. And now
Right.
I've allowed myself to be more authentic
hmm
and discover more who I am and love who I am, regardless whether I'm late or not, type of thing. Just love that,
Right.
honor that. You're naturally, it's not as difficult to change those habits. Things have kind of
Right.
been easier the more that you have just accepted who you are. And
Right.
that is so cool to me, where it is like, yeah, the body keeps score on where you are not being you, and your body tells you that. It holds on to pain, it holds on emotions, it creates chronic illness and disease because
hmm
dis-ease. You're not in alignment with you.
Right. Yeah, you're like I was so like just I don't did I wonder if I hated myself or if I hated how I was showing up and
Yeah, yeah,
or how I was not showing up,
great. How you
and I was putting so much like pressure on myself to change and
Mhm.
to like why the fuck can I not stop chewing gum? Like what the fuck is wrong with me? Like that
Yeah,
was like that constant angry voice just like ragging on me and like telling me that I was not good enough, that I was not being enough. And I was just like rather than respond to that voice in my head, that angry, mean voice with like, look, I love you, think you're right, but like how can we collaborate? This is a thing that keeps coming up. Like when you fight, like whether you're fighting with other people or yourself, like screaming at that, like fighting back is not conducive to a solution. So I was constantly like in battle mode with that inner voice in my head. And it was just this ongoing vicious cycle of like this mean voice telling me I was not good enough and me responding to it and being like, well, fuck you. If I'm not good enough, I'm gonna chew gum. Like, I'm
yeah.
gonna do this. Like, it was like, but now that I collaborate with that inner voice in my head, I have like a whole fucking village in there. but there's a lot going on in there. Um, but now that it's more of a collaborative, like team-centric approach, um, it's we're able to look at the whole thing, like the whole scope of like me and my life, one little baby step at a time, and say, okay, what's the next habit that needs to go? Like, what do we need to spend 30 days focusing on? Why is this a problem and why is this the next thing to tackle?
Yeah.
And what's cool is that like one of our mutual friends, Julie, um said she told me once that what's it called? If you work on one habit for let's say 30 days, the other habits that you weren't necessarily working on, like improving, are just going to resolve themselves without you having to do any work.
I love that.
And when I started tackling my relationship with my to-do list and social media and really started to get it under control, some days I have bad days, which is okay, it happens. Um, but when I changed my relationship, like the essence of my relationship with social media and to-do list, where they are tools, I am not the tool. Um, the gum thing just stopped. Like I wasn't intentionally doing anything about it. I just stopped needing gum.
Isn't that
And
fascinating?
that's fucking wild. So those things were creating so much tension in my body and they were like allowing me to avoid my life.
Mhm.
And so I was so anxious and so tense, like, and I would feel it in my jaw, and the
Yes.
gum would give me relief. Whereas
Yeah.
now that I've changed the relationship with my to-do list and social media, and at the time I couldn't see how the two were connected at all. Like now that we're talking, I'm like seeing it in real time, and I'm like, that's why they're connected because I was using both of them to avoid my actual life. And that was creating tension everywhere, especially in my mouth area,
Good.
because I wasn't speaking up about what my issues were because I was so locked into like my to-do list and social media. It's all connected. And because I no longer have that tension in my jaw because I'm not avoiding my life, I don't need the gum.
That
Wild.
right? And that there's always, you can treat the symptom, but you have to find the root cause.
Yeah.
The root cause is so many times your mindset in a way.
Hmm.
It is literally how you feel about yourself and how you talk to yourself. And then those thoughts create like it's just a ripple effect, which then shows up in the craziest of ways. Like, oh my gosh, I love this example. There's so much
I
that like
I didn't even know where I was going with it, but
this
I
is
just had a
awesome.
massive breakthrough. That's wild.
That's huge, but just your shift in you were telling yourself a story of negativity and then shifting how you actually related to that story of like neutralizing it and going, this doesn't actually depict my worth. Like I'm not a bad human because I'm on social media all the time. No, I'm just going to look at it differently and
Hmm.
neutralize that emotional charge that I have given it, that I have
Hmm.
it potentially because of external factors of judgment and all of that kind of stuff, like we get it from society. um
Right.
you literally neutralized and healed yourself mentally, emotionally, and then physically with the habit that probably wasn't doing so good for you. And that's just like one thing, that's just scratching the surface. Isn't that
Right.
so wild and fascinating when we go to your body knows?
Right. So now it's making me think, okay, maybe I'm not so freaked out by, I mean, I don't know. Like, I just got all my internals checked out, and it seems like my body's pretty healthy, all things considered, according to my doctors and my blood work, which is wonderful. They're like, everything's working just fine. I'm like, okay, I'll take it. So I'm wondering if my body keeps the score. Like, yes, maybe long term it keeps the score of all my stupidity in the past, and maybe it will all come back to bite me in the ass. Who knows? But maybe it's just keeping the score like in the moment, like in terms of like it's nudging you, like, hey, like you're really stressed out. Go fucking deal with it. Like, stop avoiding, stop chewing gum, stop scrolling on social media. It's not helping you. Like, I'm going to force you to see how this is a problem. I'm going to make this, I'm going to make your life difficult until you look and you see what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what is meant by keeping the score rather than like it's keeping the score over the course of your life. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know.
like showing up on tests and like that kind of stuff. I think there definitely is something to that where
Hmm.
you can show up doctor's type of thing, check every boxes like you're 100% good, but you still have pain in your back. But everything is,
Hmm.
well, that pain in your back is is your body's sign that there's something wrong with you in order to get you to
Right.
look at it. But the
Right.
doctor's telling you everything is fine. But then it's like, no, you need to search for the root cause, which is most often, I will say, I will put it out there, it is a mental emotional thing.
Hmm.
There is some
Right.
energetic thing that is not going to show up in allopathic medicine. It's
Right.
not. So the body keeps score in that initial moment and until you pay attention. I do think there is somewhat of a correlation to it does produce actual like quantifiable cancer or
Yeah.
heart disease or
Oh,
like,
he covered that in the book. Sorry to go back
oh,
there, but he
okay.
does talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think
Um,
that it does do at
yeah.
some point, but there is,
So we're talking about how your pain or emotions and stress like can manifest physically in the form of tension in the jaw or back pain or whatever. But he actually gets into like the science of it because I've always heard that like thrown around, especially in the online space. So it's like, come on, anxiety doesn't cause cancer. Like, you guys sound a little like cuckoo. But when the way that he explains it in the book is he says that when you are in an extreme state of like agitation and fear and anxiety and trauma, your body is secreting abnormal amounts of stress hormones. And that is coursing through your body, and that is what causes like internal problems, like when your stress hormones are being overly released. And there's no denying, like, I don't know the science of like hormones, but there's no denying that when you are extremely stressed, even bodybuilders talk about this, like when you're extremely stressed, your body holds on to weight,
mhm.
right? Or your heart rate is going through the roof or not beating fast enough. Your organs are not like, I've had to take supplements before for my stress. And I've had a lot of my fitness coaches tell me like, are you stressed out? Because that's probably why you're not losing weight. So there is like
Yeah. It
there are
shows up.
so many
Yeah.
like little things. So if you're stressed and you don't deal with it and your stress level is extreme and you're not paying attention to that, then maybe you're gaining weight or not able to lose weight. And then all of a sudden, like that weight amount spirals. And now suddenly you have heart disease. Like, I think that's sort of what is meant
Yeah.
by that. I think people just miss the in between steps.
Right. Yeah. I completely agree with that. It's totally the domino effect of things
Hmm.
where it will over time impact and cause dis-ease in the body where everything builds up and then it creates a condition from it. But when you take it all back, so much of it is us beating ourselves up over something where we are not being true to ourselves. We are not valuing ourselves as the perfect human beings that we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think
Exactly.
this has been like a mind-blowing, incredible conversation. We had no idea where this was going to go from the beginning.
No.
I think we touched on so many different topics that everybody's going to get something from this episode, whether it makes coherent
Right.
sense or not.
Right, guys, we're thinking out loud, and I'm also not scientific and I can't articulate, so just
If
FYI.
Go read the book. It's going to be in a library near you somewhere.
Hmm.
And if any of this resonated, by all means, reach out for further conversation. Like the podcast, share the podcast, because I think this conversation is a big conversation just in general.
Hmm.
Everybody is going to, I think, resonate, understand, hear something where you can trace it back to where you are not aligned in you. And that is causing problems, at least just like a little seed of awareness of, hey, maybe I should go down a little bit more of a route. And then, hey, flip back and listen to, all of our previous episodes on really
Hmm.
knowing who you are and setting boundaries and having difficult conversations with yourself, other people. Um, this has been a great episode, and we are definitely going to have another conversation about this, a deeper conversation about this, because it is so important. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, any final words to sort of say to everybody?
Yeah, I think like definitely when you start exploring this stuff, I think it's important to maybe be in the right headspace because I think even 6 months ago, I would not have been ready to read this book or have these kinds of conversations and get really real about like my habits and where they're coming from. Like I don't know if I was in that place. So check in with yourself before you start going down this rabbit hole and make sure you're ready for it because the truth is this information is always going to be here for you, but it's important to be ready for it when you do decide to explore it. Because you might not be ready to get to the root cause of your habits, and that's okay. Um, like just give yourself the time and space because like in the case of the gum example and the social media example and the to-do list example, I tried to fix those problems for so long. Like I tried so many attempts and this is the first time it feels real because I was ready to tackle those things. Just like I actually opened the Body Keeps the Score probably 10 different times in the last year and I couldn't get myself to sit with the words because I wasn't ready for it. And
Yeah,
that's okay.
I was gonna
Um,
like you'll know when you're ready.
mhm,
It'll come up over
yeah.
and over, and when it's time, it happens. So give yourself the grace. You are an
Mhm,
onion. You can't just, automatically dive into that core. You have to peel the layers off a little bit at a time. Sometimes
mhm,
just one layer, sometimes it's three at once. Like it
mhm.
it truly is, allow yourself to just be like, trust your body. Trust your body. Your body will tell you whether or not you're ready.
It's keeping the score anyway, so you might as well listen to it.
Right. So allow this to be a seed. A
Yeah, absolutely.
seed. Okay. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Again, make sure you share this episode, follow us on social, subscribe, leave your reviews, and we love you.
We love you, and I love you.
Hey, see you next episode, guys.
Bye.